started her comedy routine a few years ago at Parkside Restaurant's Valentine's Show and entertains her co-workers at lunchtime daily in the lounge. Please welcome Christy Gates.
Yes, I do happen to be a bit of a ham in the lounge, so I thought about calling this the Lounge Act. But that doesn't quite conjure up the right image. I do know what the talk is like in the lounge right now. We are all up against a wall. It is May 1st. And we're supposed to get a room full of right-brained, left-handed, introverted, spatial intelligence-based, kinesthetic learners to focus for another 22 days. But have no fear, I'm sure the community is behind us. That wasn't actually the joke, but you're right. As humorist Evan Ezer says, America believes in education. The average educator makes more in one whole year than the professional athlete makes in half a week. So the lounge is our only solace. And some, I believe, in the community have a bit of a disillusioned view of this spacious area we call the teacher's lounge. I think they picture us reclining in plush couches with a champagne in one hand and popping bonbons with the other, and flipping through our vacation brochures for our 3 months off. But in reality, we all know we're scarfing down our delicious lean cuisine crusted with ice crystals, while sitting elbow to elbow on stools and waiting in line for the one and only toilet. We do all this while gulping down our 4th Diet Coke of the day because it's the heaviest drink we can get our hands on. And we read that rave review that was written about our district in the letter to the editor. Then, as the bell rings, we scrape that final fleck of a child's snot off our shirt and head back to the trenches. Now, we all know the truth about the lounge, but there is probably one thing that the public gets right about what teachers do in the lounge. We talk about their kids. It just might not sound exactly like they imagine it. So here are just a few gems. I know we all have hundreds of them, and the retirees probably have even more than that. But here's just a few gems from my 8 years in preschool through kindergarten, through 2nd grade. Preschool through 2nd grade, that's what I'm talking about. One preschooler had been to the cat shelter to pick out a new pet, and so she informed me that it was a tough decision because there were so many cats there. If you saw how many cats were there, you would poop your eyes out. So, another child was telling me about his plan to become a superhero. And he informed me that, he was going to work with the characters of the Star Wars to save the world, and that whenever he played War of the Worlds, he was always winning. And I feigned interest, saying, "Oh, yes, wow, how cool, oh my gosh, wow." He looked up at me and said, "You're a teacher. You don't have to say gosh. You could say ass." Because all my ass would have been perfectly appropriate. So I know that we've all heard that phrase, meet the parents, forgive the child. Well, the next story is more like meet the great-grandma, forgive the whole dang family. This happened to be one of my 1st grade conferences. In trudge 7 people, 4 kids under 7, mama with another one on the way, grandma and great-grandma. So I gather extra seats and start the conference, and suddenly, just under her breath, great-grandma starts singing. I can't quite decipher what she's saying, so I lean in a little bit. She's singing, "Word wall, math homework, spelling test," under her breath, gradually louder, reading my wall. And they tell me, as I start to understand a little bit more about the family, they tell me that great-grandma just escaped the other day. And that they had to call the police and track her down, and they found her in somebody else's breakfast nook. And I look over at her and I say very seriously, "You shouldn't do that to them. You've scared your family." And she looked at me, dead in hand, and said, "You can't stop me. I'm gonna leave this place too. Yes, I will. Yes, I will." So I think now we get why that Italian proverb says, "What is crooked by nature cannot be made straight by education." strongly that I have further proof to prove that very statement based off of my dating experiences. You see, I've been out there on the dating scene trying to find me a man. But I'd like you to just go with me on a little trip. Fast forward about 20 years and imagine these same students that we work with trying to create an online dating profile. I'm telling you, there's so many weirdos out there. If you saw how many there were there, you would poop your eyes out. So that is the premise of my book. There are several types that show up over and over, much like the mama's boys, the boy toys, the international men of mystery, the depressed disasters, and the basement dwellers. That high school kid who drives his tractor to school just for kicks, he writes a profile like this, and this is verbatim off of their profile, people. I like to go to truck and tractor pulls, and I'm in the Dukes of Hazzard. My favorite hotspots are demolition derbies, pizza shops, and anywhere there are pretty girls. I like beef farms and pig farms too. Really, Cletus? Then, you know, the ED child, the emo that we work with, they write this. I've spent most of my life in self-imposed exile and stasis. When I get down, I like to nunchuck to fast-paced music. I can picture it. And you know, I wasn't quite sure about the word stasis. I don't know about you all, but I had to look that up. And it means a stoppage of flow of bodily fluids. That would depress you a bit, I think. So if you like that guy's command of the English language, then you will also understand why this person did not pass English class. I'm interested in you for marriage. I decide my message for you to send. If answer be positive, please think to my message and agree to for marriage. So if we marry, I to you country must come. Now that kid who's fighting the Star Wars in his head, he becomes the basement dweller that I speak of. He only emerges from his mom's basement when the newest edition of War of Worlds comes out, or to buy more cheese curls and soda. The closest this guy's ever going to come to real relationship is the commitment that he has to upgrading his electronic devices. And then there are the types who create a name all for themselves. Yes, I dated them. There's 12 chapters. Here's an excerpt from, some excerpts from Punked by Prince Charming, the chapter entitled The Gaming French Maid. So I tried yet another online dating source, and I met a man named Bob, who seemed nice enough, even if he was living in his parents' basement. He was saving to move out, he assured me. So I decided to friend him on social media, and once I clicked accept friend, I entered a domain entirely foreign to me. I found tons of Star Wars, Star Trek, and Pokemon games and characters. Collector's figures still in the boxes, posters, miniature worlds created to replicate the movies, even pictures of him at conventions next to a life-size Pikachu. Yeah, you heard me right. That card game that most of the 8-year-olds have outgrown, he's obsessed with it and competes weekly at conventions. So I was justifying, it's no big deal, it's just a hobby. Right as I was doing that justification, my cousin messaged me to say, seriously, you cannot go out with this guy. He has walls lined with paraphernalia from every dorky thing imaginable, and even though he's living in his mom's basement, he labeled his album Casa de Bob. Run. But I gave the man a first date. I'm ever the optimist. And I was decently surprised that he showed up with flowers. But, yes. But then, when we walked out to his car, this sight for sore eyes is surely something that even some of our high schoolers would not be seen driving. It was a rusted out, blue Dodge Neon with a green bumper, and it had more duct tape on it than paint. So he walked around, opened the door to let me in, which I thought was very gentlemanlike, until he asked me to lean over and unlock his door because he couldn't enter from the outside. Then Wes, after I let him in, while trying to close his door, part of the interior door frame came unattached, and we couldn't go until he got his duct tape out to fix it. So finally we make it on our way, and I get a quick tour of all the places that Bob visits to play in his Pokemon tournaments. And when Bob showed up to our second date, yes, said it go he came directly from a match, wearing swishy pants, a Pikachu hat, and a shirt that had been nibbled on by animated characters. I was through. Ultimately, it really wouldn't have worked out because Bob really did need more time to dedicate to his real love. You know, that chubby, yellow, animated rodent that had won his affections. Just imagine the boost to my self-esteem when I discovered that my curvy frame had less appeal than the lumpy nubbins on a pudgy Pikachu. Now, about 2 months later, I received a follow-up phone call from Bob, telling me how happy he was to be moving out of his parents' basement and into a motel room. I mentally shifted his name from the weirdo category to just plain creepy. And he mentioned that he had his entire Halloween costume prepared and wanted me to guess what would it be. Here are a few of the clues. I've got 2 different pairs of high heels. One higher and one shorter for when my feet hurt. And if I wear the 4-inch heels, well, since they are peep-toe, I'm going to have to paint my toenails. I think I got all the pieces. A wig, the shoes, the 4X French maid costume, and a friend of mine has fishnet stockings. So then he asked if he should paint his nails or wear the fake ones, if he should pierce his ears or just wear the clip-ons. And he assured me, because I was so worried, that he would be shaving his legs for that. Bob's preparation for this French maid costume to be worn on Halloween threw me off. But it threw me off even more because it was only July. So just as I thought perhaps it could get no stranger, right? He said, you know, corsets aren't cheap. So I guess I'm going to go the plastic wrap and duct tape route instead. Since I can only guess how many times my skirt will be flipped up, I'm going to wear a pink thong, too. Yes. The most outrageous part to me about this disillusioned fantasy is that he didn't even have any place to go on Halloween. No old college buddy bash, no work party, not even a Pokemon convention. Just an elaborate French maid costume he wears in his hotel room when no one's around. Yes, to this day, I will still occasionally get a message from Babette, Bob's alter ego, who dresses up in women's clothing whenever he's out of town visiting Pikachu. Now you can see why I choose to say to the world, the dating world, I'm going to leave this dating stuff soon. Yes, I am.